Chapter 7 Bad Moonlight! The dancing, cheering crowd at the Rocket Club roared and demanded an encore. Bad Moonlight, they chanted. Again, Bad Moonlight! Danielle's face streamed with sweat. Her outfit, a short, red t-shirt dress blazing with sequins, felt like a limp rag. A callus split open on one of her fingers. She felt fabulous. I could sing all night, she thought happily. Bad Moonlight! Again, the crowd cried. Bad Moonlight! Laughing, Danielle spun around to the rest of the band. Caroline flipped her long, blonde hair over her shoulder and pumped her fist. Behind the drums, Mary Beth grinned back at her. Even Dee appeared happy and pleased, until she met Danielle's eyes. Then Dee's expression turned hateful. Danielle tried not to let it bother her. We're a hit, she thought excitedly. The crowd loves us, loves my song, wants to hear it again. Give it to them, Billy shouted from off stage. Standing beside him, Joey gave her a thumbs up. Danielle whirled back to face the crowd. She glanced at Caroline, who played the opening notes on the keyboard. Mary Beth joined in with the drum beat. Danielle tossed her head and launched into Bad Moonlight. The crowd roared its approval, then sang along. Bad moonlight falling over me, bad moonlight shining down on me, bad moonlight. As she sang, Danielle noticed a figure in the crowd. He stood out because he didn't clap or sing like everyone else. He kept perfectly still, watching her. Kit. He usually worked backstage when the band was on stage. He must have come out front just to watch me, Danielle thought. Kit's pale blue eyes glittered with admiration, not just for Danielle's singing, for Danielle herself. Dr. Moore was right about the kiss, she realized. Kit wouldn't stare at her that way if he wasn't still attracted to her. Knowing Kit was watching gave Danielle even more enthusiasm. She finished the song with an explosion of energy and passion. Bad moonlight shining down on me, bad moonlight, makes me want to die for you. Let's party, Joey shouted. He stuck on his sunglasses. Let's party big time. It was after 1 a.m. and the club had closed, but no one in the group could settle down. Bad Moonlight, the song and the band, had been an incredible success. Let's party, Joey shouted again. He grabbed Dee around the waist and danced her across the stage. Get your paws off me, Dee teased, shoving him away. Joey shrugged and turned to Mary Beth. To Danielle's surprise, Mary Beth started to dance with Joey. If Mary Beth is excited enough to dance with Joey, Danielle thought, then we're definitely a hit. How's it going? Billy asked as Danielle packed up her guitar. Wiped out, Danielle grinned. Fantastic. Billy smiled, the dimple in his cheek deepening. You are really radical, Danielle. I guessed you don't need me to tell you that. You can tell me, Danielle replied. I love hearing it. Hey, what are we going to do? Caroline asked Billy. Everybody's in the mood to celebrate? Billy ran a hand through his dark blonde hair. I hate to tell you, but with this club closed for the night, the hotel coffee shop is the only game in town. Caroline shrugged. That's okay. We can party anywhere tonight. We're all totally pumped. As Caroline turned away, Danielle spotted Kit across the stage. As he coiled the cables, the muscles in his arms flexed under his black t-shirt. Danielle couldn't forget the look in Kit's eyes when he watched her sing. She wanted to feel that spark again. She headed toward Kit, but she was halfway across the stage when strong hands grabbed her and spun her around. Joey! You're all mine now, he exclaimed. He tightened his grip and pulled her toward him. Before Danielle could stop him, he kissed her on the mouth. She shoved him hard and pulled her face away. Cut it out, Joey, she demanded. Come on, Danny, he said with a leer. You know you're hot for my bod. No way, Danielle protested. Across the stage, she saw Kit make a disgusted face. He picked up the coiled cables and disappeared backstage. Great, Danielle thought. I hope Kit doesn't think I do like Joey. Okay, everybody, Billy called out, waving a small piece of paper over his head. I've got our check. We're not millionaires yet, but I think we can spring for a few cheeseburgers at the coffee shop. Laughing and joking, Danielle and the others finished packing up and left the club. Danielle realized she couldn't stand the thought of sitting around a table talking. She suddenly felt like running. Running for miles in the cool night air. Running free. Hey, I'm still really wired, she told Caroline as they crossed the street to the hotel. I think I'll take a quick walk. Order me a cheeseburger, rare. Veering away from the group, Danielle started down the sidewalk at a brisk pace. In a couple of minutes, she'd passed the shops and small office buildings. The sidewalks ended, and Danielle found herself walking along a dirt path next to a field. Nothing grew in the field except tall weeds. Moonlight shimmered over the field, turning the weeds silver gray. Danielle raised her head and stared up at the full moon. Go, Danielle whispered to herself. She started to run. Her shoes pounded the ground as she ran under the moonlight. The weeds whipped at her legs and dress, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't slow down. The moonlight, she thought. Something about the moonlight makes me feel so strange and new. A shape loomed in front of her, a wall. Big stones with wrought iron bars sunk into the top. The wall stood at least 5 feet high. Stop, Danielle thought. Stop! She couldn't stop. She ran at the stone wall. She felt the muscles in her legs tighten and bunch like springs. And then she leaped, off the ground, soaring into the air, over the wall, so easily, like a dog or a horse. She landed on all fours. How did I do that? Breathing hard, Danielle lifted her head and gazed around. She recognized this place, the park where she had kissed Kit. She had run around the outskirts of town and back to the park. Feeling winded, Danielle braced her hands on the ground, started to push herself to her feet. The moonlight washed over her hands, only they weren't her hands. Her nails! Her nails had grown by inches, and they were thick and crusty, curling under like claws. Danielle held the ugly, thick claws in front of her face and stared at them in silent horror. Bad moonlight shining down on me. She heard a sound, back in the field, rustling, breathing, footsteps. Someone had followed her. She leaped to her feet, raising her ugly claws. Joey! Danielle cried. What are you doing here? Chapter 8. Anybody see Joey? Billy asked the next morning. Danielle sat with Dee, Mary Beth, and Caroline in the hotel coffee shop. Mary Beth yawned and brushed back her carrot-colored hair. Try his room, she suggested. Right. Frowning, Billy hurried away from their table. Who's got the ham omelet? The waitress asked. I do. And coffee, Mary Beth added. Dark circles ringed her green eyes. Lots and lots of coffee. The waitress thumped the plate down and strode off toward the coffee makers. It's a good thing we don't have a show to do tonight, Mary Beth muttered. I'd probably nod out during the first song. How late were you guys up anyway? Danielle asked. Too late, Caroline groaned, pushing her blonde hair behind her ears. I'll be glad to get in the van and sleep all the way back to Shadyside. Coffee, the waitress announced, hefting the glass pot. Danielle picked up her cup and saw a fresh cut on her forefinger, another split callus. What happened to you last night? Dee demanded. You never came back to the coffee shop. I know. Danielle remembered starting off on a walk, nothing else. I guess I was more tired than I thought. I really conked out. Tell me about it, Caroline replied, rolling her eyes. I was afraid we'd get a complaint from the hotel about your snoring. Joey hasn't shown up yet? Billy asked, returning to their table. Kit trailed behind him. Joey has to bring the van around so we can pack up. So you're surprised he's sleeping late? Caroline said. Joey is the best sleeper in the band. He even sleeps while he's driving. Kit shook his head. He wasn't in our room when I got up. Billy turned to Danielle. He took off a couple of minutes after you did last night. You didn't run into him, did you? Danielle shook her head. No, I didn't see him. Dee set her glass down, splashing orange juice onto the table. Joey said something about you when he left, she told Danielle. About me? Dee nodded. Danielle noticed that Dee's hands shook as she mopped up the juice. You okay, Dee? Billy asked. Yeah. Dee glanced at Danielle, then lowered her eyes. Just fine. About Joey, Kit reminded everyone. Maybe he forgot something over at the club, Caroline suggested. Good thinking, Billy told her. Managers, Mary Beth sighed. They think musicians are brainless. Yeah, Caroline laughed and waved Billy and Kit away from the table. Go get Joey and let us finish our breakfast. Aren't you eating, Danielle? Mary Beth asked, forking up ham and eggs. You used up a lot of strength during a performance, you know. You shouldn't let yourself get weak or anything. I won't, Danielle assured her. I'm just not hungry right now. It is weird, Danielle thought. I usually eat like crazy after a performance. I can't still be tired after all those hours I slept, she told herself. But she felt as if she had run a marathon. Every muscle ached. She glanced across the table at Dee. Dee's brown gold eyes darted away nervously. Maybe she feels guilty about the way she treats me, Danielle thought. Maybe there's a way for us to be friends after all. They finished breakfast. Then the 4 band members met Billy and Kit in the lobby. Their bags were already there. Did you find Joey? Dee asked. Billy shook his head, annoyed. He wasn't at the club. He's not in his room. He'd better show soon, or he's out of a job. Danielle turned toward the elevator, where Caroline and Kit were whispering intently. Danielle felt a stab of jealousy. Was something going on between the two of them? She hoped not. Kit attracted her like a magnet. We might as well pack up and move out, Billy decided. Maybe we'll find Joey walking along the road somewhere. You know we won't, Dee broke in sharply. Danielle glanced at her in surprise. What did Dee mean? Before Billy could respond, Dee grabbed her duffel bag and rushed out the door. What's Dee's problem? Danielle asked. We all know she can't stand Joey. Why is she so upset about him? Billy shrugged. Beats me. He turned to Kit and Caroline. Okay, guys, we're out of here. Out on the street, Kit and Billy secured the instruments and other equipment to the top of the van. The girls loaded the bags inside. Danielle started to climb aboard, but stopped as a police car sped by, its siren blaring. A second black and white cruiser followed, wheeling around the corner, its siren like a wild animal howl. A few seconds later, a red and white ambulance went screaming by. They're heading for the park, Kit shouted, shielding his eyes as he watched them. Come on, let's go see what's up. He locked the van and trotted in the direction of the park. Danielle and the others followed close behind. 2 police cars and an ambulance, Danielle thought with a shudder. They were sure in a hurry. It's got to be something bad. As they approached the park, Danielle saw that she and her friends weren't the only curious ones. A few dozen people stood around, craning their necks and asking questions. 2 grim-faced police officers tried to keep them back without much luck. Dee ran ahead and caught up with Kit. Danielle saw them push their way through the crowd. Everybody back, one of the officers shouted. Keep your distance. A scream rang out. That sounded like Dee, Caroline exclaimed. What did she see? Danielle's heart started to pound. I'm not going any farther, Mary Beth declared, stopping a few feet from the edge of the crowd. Look at all these people. This is sick. Caroline stopped too. Her face had grown pale. She bit her lower lip tensely. Danielle kept walking. Everybody back. We've got a crime scene here, an angry police officer shouted. Get back. Danielle reached the edge of the crowd. As she did, a gap opened up and she could see why Dee had screamed. What was that heaped on the ground? A body? A human body? Torn to pieces? Its clothing, its skin, had all been ripped and shredded, clawed to death. This person had to be clawed to death by a wild animal, Danielle thought. And then she saw the corpse's face. Joey's face. Part 2. Chapter 9. 3 weeks later. I know I didn't do it, Danielle insisted. I couldn't possibly have done anything like that. You don't have to convince me, Danielle, Dr. Moore stated quietly. Why are you trying to convince yourself? What on earth makes you think you might have killed Joey? Danielle sat tensely on the edge of the chair in Dr. Moore's office. A new chair, she noticed when she came in. Dr. Moore never said a word about how Danielle had torn up the old one. But Danielle remembered. She kept her hands in her lap, twisting them nervously. Danielle, the doctor prodded, why do you think you had anything to do with Joey's death? Because of what I've been telling you, she explained. The horrible, violent fantasies. What if they become real? You had a violent fantasy about Joey? She shook her head. No, but Billy told me that Joey left the club right after I did that night, and Dee said she heard Joey say something about wanting to talk to me. Dr. Moore tapped a pencil against his desktop. That hardly puts you and Joey together. I know that, but Danielle swallowed hard. The thing is, I don't remember what happened after I left the others, she burst out. My mind's a blank, a total blank. She grabbed the arms of the chair, then quickly lowered her hands back to her lap. Why can't I remember anything? She asked. Probably because there's nothing to remember, Dr. Moore jotted down a note. You finished performing. You felt wired, as you put it, and you walked and jogged a long way. Once you finally worked off your excitement, you were exhausted, Danielle. It's not unusual for people in such a tired state to forget things. Could that be the way it happened? Danielle wondered. You're not likely to carry out any of these fantasies, the doctor continued. You haven't gotten over the violent way your parents were suddenly taken from you. So your mind is filled with violent thoughts. He leaned forward, his blue eyes intense behind his glasses. But that does not mean you will commit violent acts. Danielle glanced down at her hands. They seemed to have a life of their own, twisting, writhing in her lap. She couldn't keep them still. You're very tense, Dr. Moore observed. Let's clear your mind, shall we? That should help you calm down. He came around and sat on the edge of his desk. Start counting, Danielle, he commanded softly. With each number, you'll feel yourself start to relax. Danielle leaned back in the chair and began counting backward from 100. The wind blew back Danielle's hair as the van made its way toward another dreary hotel, more greasy food, and another roaring crowd. Danielle couldn't wait. She felt loose and ready to perform. Her session with Dr. Moore had really helped. She glanced up and caught Kit's eyes in the rearview mirror. He winked at her playfully. She grinned, warned by his attention. I can't believe we're just driving to the next club as if nothing happened, Dee said bitterly. Joey was killed, slashed to pieces in case you've forgotten. Doesn't anybody care? Silence. Danielle pictured Joey's body, bloody and torn. She shook her head to clear away the image. Sure we care, Dee, Billy said finally. His voice cracked. You know we do. We just... We have to keep living, you know, Caroline broke in. I mean, we can't crawl under a rock or something. We should cancel this show, Dee declared. Dee, we can't, Kit replied gently. It would mean breaking our contract. And I think it's the last thing Joey would have wanted us to do. Dee muttered a reply. Danielle couldn't hear her. She's really unhappy, Danielle thought. She reached behind her seat and pulled her guitar out of the case. I wrote a song yesterday, she announced. She strummed a chord. Another one? Caroline asked. Danny, you're really on a roll. If it's as good as Bad Moonlight, you can do it tomorrow night, Billy promised. He had booked them at a club called the Roadhouse in Hastings. It's sort of a second Bad Moonlight, Danielle told them. More upbeat, though, and it's for Dee to sing, she added. Dee turned around in her seat, her eyebrows arched in surprise. Danielle smiled at her. Maybe this'll make things better between us, she thought. Let's hear it, Kit demanded. With her fingers, Danielle tapped out a beat on the front of the guitar. Then she strummed a chord and began to sing. Stop me, whoa, bad moonlight, stop me. Keep me, stop me, hold me like a friend. Caroline swung her head to the beat, her blonde hair swaying. Mary Beth tapped on the seat back, using her fingers as drumsticks. Dee listened intently, her amber eyes locked on Danielle's face. Stop me, whoa, bad moonlight, keep me in your cold, cold glow. Don't let me kill again. A long silence greeted the end of the song. Danielle felt her face heat up with embarrassment and confusion. Had she really written those words? Billy cleared his throat. Wow, he murmured. He started to say more, but Dee interrupted him. Don't let me kill again? She glared at Danielle. That's a song for me to sing. What's that supposed to mean? Danielle shook her head. I don't know. I don't understand it. I just started to sing it and... I didn't kill Joey. You did, Dee shrieked. Before Danielle could struggle away, Dee wrapped her long, slender fingers around Danielle's throat and started to strangle her. Chapter 10. It was you, Dee wailed. It was you. Her fingers squeezed tighter. Dee is so strong, Danielle thought. I never realized how strong she is. She grabbed hold of Dee's hands with both of her own and tried to pry the vice-like fingers from her throat. Dee kept shouting, no words now, just shrieks of rage. Despite Danielle's struggles, Dee's grip tightened. A wave of panic swept over Danielle. Can't breathe, she thought. She's going to strangle me. She yanked one of Dee's fingers hard, bending it back as far as she could. Dee gasped and jerked the hand off Danielle's throat. The van lurched and slowed to a stop. Danielle gripped Dee's other wrist and pulled. She felt air rush into her lungs. Taking a deep breath, she scrambled to her knees and shoved Dee away from her. Dee lunged at her again. Hey! Billy's learned voice rang out sharply. Dee, back off! Back off! Danielle flung up her arms, blocking Dee's charge. I didn't do it! I didn't do it! The words burst hoarsely from Danielle's aching throat. Hurry up, Kit! Give me a hand here! Billy demanded. Strong hands grabbed Dee's shoulders, pulling her away from Danielle. Danielle glared at Dee. The other girl struggled in Kit's grip. He held her in the narrow aisle of the van. A song for me, huh? Dee cried bitterly. The words just popped into my head, Danielle told her. I don't know why. It didn't mean anything, Dee. I wasn't accusing you. It was just a song. Everybody, cool it, Kit shouted. He shook Dee by the shoulders. Now! Danielle forced herself to stay still. Billy loosened his grip. He rested his hand on her trembling shoulder. Kit glanced around to the group. We've got a show tomorrow night, he reminded them. I know we're all still uptight about Joey, but we can't afford to blow this. Everybody needs to stay cool. Dee breathed hard. Her eyes never left Danielle's face. She really believes I killed Joey, Danielle told herself. She screamed it over and over. But why? Why does she suspect me? Danielle rubbed her throat, sore from Dee's powerful grip. With a shudder, Danielle turned away from Dee's blazing stare. Mary Beth gazed solemnly at Danielle. Her green eyes glowed in the dim interior light of the van, glowed with fear. Is Mary Beth afraid of Dee? Danielle wondered. Or is Mary Beth frightened of me? A shaft of lightning split the sky. Thunder boomed like a cannon. Everyone jumped. We're in for rain, Kit said, letting go of Dee's arm. Let's get moving. No one spoke during the rest of the trip. The storm followed them the whole 90-mile drive. Lightning bolts snaked down from the sky. Thunder rattled the windows of the van. When Kit pulled up in front of the hotel, the rain shot down like bullets. Billy and I will need some extra hands with the equipment, Kit shouted over the drumming of the rain. We'll unload the top of the van first. He opened the sliding door and jumped down to the street. Billy followed, then Dee, Mary Beth, and Caroline. When Danielle hopped down to the wet pavement, the rain plastered her hair to her head. Flinging it back, she raised her face to the sky. Danielle, come on, Caroline called over her shoulder. You want to drown? But Danielle felt a sudden urge to move, to run through the storm, to feel the wind and water against her skin. Squinting against the driving rain, she took off down the street. Danny, Caroline shouted after her. Where are you going? We have to unpack. Let her go, Danielle heard Kit shout at Caroline. She'll be okay. Will I? Danielle wondered. Will I ever be okay? Her legs churning, she threw herself into the driving curtains of rain, splashing through puddles, stumbling and scrambling up again. What am I doing? She asked herself. I can't stop myself. I can't. The sky cleared as she stopped her frantic run. Gasping for breath, she slowed to a trot, then a walk. Her side ached, her legs wobbled like rubber. Her mouth felt dry. I'm thirsty, she realized. So thirsty. I must drink. Danielle lowered herself to the street. On all fours, she bent over a puddle and frantically lapped the rainwater with her tongue. Chapter 11. At rehearsal the next morning, they checked out the club. The Roadhouse wasn't quite as big as the Rocket Club, but the two owners knew each other, and word about Bad Moonlight had spread. It'll be packed tonight, the club's manager told Billy when the band took a break. I warned my bouncers. We'll probably have to turn people away. Billy grinned. You hear that, guys? He called out. Tonight, we've got to really kick. The manager jerked his thumb at Danielle. We got to thank you for it, honey, he told her. Dave from the Rocket said you were dynamite. Danielle smiled at him as she tightened a new string on her guitar. Caroline rolled her eyes. Honey, she whispered to Danielle. Dynamite, Danielle whispered back, laughing. Could we get back to work? Dee demanded impatiently from the other side of the stage. We've been hanging out for 20 minutes. Billy nodded. Sure, Dee. You want to work? We'll work. Good. Dee picked up her guitar and frowned at Danielle. She still thinks I wrote that song to accuse her of killing Joey, Danielle thought. The two of us will never become friends. No way. It's hopeless now. No one had mentioned putting Danielle's new song into the show, not after what happened in the van. No one talked about what happened either. But Danielle couldn't forget the feeling of Dee's fingers on her neck, squeezing tighter and tighter, trying to kill her. And I didn't just fight back, Danielle thought with a shudder. I wanted to kill her. Violent thoughts, because of what had happened to her parents. Dr. Moore said she wouldn't act on those thoughts. Danielle was terrified that she would. After the fight with Dee, Danielle remembered, she had run like a crazy person. She drank from a puddle of dirty rainwater, lapped up the water like a thirsty dog. What's wrong with me? Danielle wondered. Something is happening to me, and I don't know how to stop it. Danielle, you ready? Billy asked, breaking into her troubled thoughts. Danielle jumped. Sure, Billy. Sorry. She picked up her guitar and jogged toward the front of the stage. You okay? Kit murmured as she passed him, his blue eyes full of concern. You look worried about something. Danielle shook her head. She couldn't tell him. How could she tell the guy she liked that she might be going crazy? I'm all right, she reassured him. Just a little tired, I guess. Okay, Billy called out when Danielle took her place. Start with Bad Moonlight. Make this place jump. For a while, Danielle lost herself in the music. It cleared her mind and made her feel safe. Too bad she ever had to stop. Wear the red dress again, Caroline advised Danielle later in her hotel room. You wore it in Midland and we were a hit. I think she ought to wear black, Mary Beth argued. Those tight black pants and that cropped t-shirt with the silver things on them. They look like half moons. It'll go with her name. I hate those pants, Danielle declared. I have to lie down to get them on, and I'm always afraid they're going to split up the back. That'd make it a full moon, Caroline joked. Mary Beth laughed and tossed a pair of rolled-up socks at her. Caroline tossed them back, but Danielle grabbed them in midair and threw them at Caroline. They were still heaving the socks at each other when somebody banged on the door. "Hey, it's me. Open up," Billy called in. Caroline opened the door. "What's the matter?" "I can't find Kit," Billy told them, pushing back a tangle of dark blonde hair. "He needs to set up for the show. We're on in an hour and a half. Anybody seen him?" "I saw him around 3, after we finished rehearsing," Mary Beth volunteered. "He was leaving the club with Dee." "With Dee?" Danielle asked, feeling a twinge of jealousy. Mary Beth nodded. "They're having some kind of argument. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it was pretty intense." Danielle frowned, thinking hard. What could Dee and Kit be arguing about? Billy glanced at his watch. "We've got to find them. Let's spread out and look. Hastings is small. It shouldn't take us long. Mary Beth, you come with me," he ordered. "We'll look north, up by the river, then west. Danielle, you and Caroline take the south side, then go east." Danielle pulled on her sneakers and followed the others out of the hotel. "Where could they have gone?" she asked, shoving her hands into the pockets of her cutoffs. "Kit wouldn't take off. An hour and a half before a show?" "I know," Caroline agreed. "It's not like him. It's not like him to argue with anyone either. Kit's always so calm and cool. I only saw him get mad once when Joey blew out an amplifier." They turned a corner and hurried down a side street lined with old brick buildings. Weeds poked through the cracks in the sidewalk. "Dee's been so totally weird since Joey died," Caroline said thoughtfully. "I mean, she's never exactly the life of the party, but she's been so much moodier and angrier." "Yeah." Danielle reached up and touched her throat. It still felt sore from Dee's angry attack. Danielle's heart speeded up. She suddenly had a powerful feeling of dread. What could Dee and Kit be arguing about? What? "Hey, Danielle, wait up," Caroline called. "Why are you walking so fast? This isn't a race." "I want to find him," Danielle called back. "Something's wrong. Something happened." She ran to the end of the block. An abandoned building sat on the right, its windows boarded up. Danielle glanced across the street, an empty lot. Broken glass littered the ground. The wind blew fast food wrappers and yellowing newspapers against the rusty fence surrounding it. Danielle glimpsed a flash of color in the waist-high weeds. Leaping off the sidewalk, she ran across the street and stared in horror into the empty lot. Behind the fence, Kit lay on his back on the ground, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear, his shirt ripped at the shoulder. Her arms crossed over her chest. Dee stood over him. Kit struggled to his feet and faced her. "Dee," he begged hoarsely. "Please, don't." Dee didn't seem to hear him. Her eyes narrowed. She advanced a step. She crouched over, her legs bent at the knees. Her hands flexed. The fingers curved like claws. Dee's lips drew back in a hideous grin. Her breath came faster. Her golden eyes glinted with savage glee. "No!" Danielle screamed through the wire fence. "Kit! Dee! No!" Too late. Roaring like an animal, Dee dived at Kit, raised both hands, and began slashing him to pieces.